In this video, I will share my 3-year experience of using the E-knot knife from the Kizlyar production company from the Republic of Dagestan. There are already quite informative reviews about this tool on the web, which supplemented the information from the manufacturer's website and helped me to make my choice on the E-knot. The knife turned out to be more than successful, which prompted me to make my own video about it. Nothing in this video should be taken as truth. Look at all the other reviews to create the most objective view of this tool. First of all, to make it clearer, I will tell you why I chose this particular knife. In the past, hiking was my main work, in the process of which I deduced for myself an important rule. If it is necessary to organize everyday life in natural conditions for a period of more than 3 days, it is necessary to have not one universal knife, but 2 knives oriented each for its own tasks. One is for working on hard materials with significant pressure on the cutting edge for bivouac work. The other knife is used for working on materials with low density. Such a knife has a good, precise cut without significant pressure on the cutting edge. Mostly, such a knife works in the field kitchen. If one knife fails, the second can take over its function, albeit with less efficiency. In camping trips for a couple of days, you can do with one universal knife. In this video, we will talk about a knife for power cutting, i.e., the Raccoon knife. This knife is a tool for household purposes only, and is not a weapon even in those countries that have a law on cold weapons. In spite of the fact that the thickness of its edge is 4.2 millimeters and the length of the blade is 106 millimeters with a trauma-safe handle, it still does not belong to a cold weapon because the angle of convergence of the edge and the cutting edge is more than 70 degrees, more specifically 76 degrees. One of the most important advantages of the Coon knife is its handle, which is made of moderately soft thermoplastic elastomer with a good coefficient of friction. After purchase, it is desirable to wash the knife with soap and water to wash off the technical grease from the mold into which this handle was molded under pressure. I have operated the knife in winter in temperatures as low as -20 degrees Celsius. In most cases, I used the knife with good working gloves, and subjectively, I did not feel any negative effect from the reduction of elasticity of thermoplastic elastomer. The handle did not become perceptibly neither stiff nor slippery. The knife sat confidently in my hand. In water, the handle also does not become slippery. I even managed to use this knife underwater. Not every diving knife has such a handle as this one. If you rub the handle under force in the water, there is a characteristic squeak. On the handle, there is a tactilely perceptible seam on the joints of molds for casting thermoplastic elastoplast, but it does not cause any discomfort. If you want a perfect handle, you can easily cut this seam in any convenient way. The shape of the handle has an ovoid cross-section, and the first impressions regarding the convenience of this shape were ambiguous. But further use showed that this shape of the handle is quite convenient, and it is very comfortable to work with this knife. The balance of the knife is classical. The center of gravity is between the index and middle finger, with a slight shift to the side of the blade. It is probably made as a reserve for future sharpening, in the process of which the mass of the blade will be slightly reduced, and with years of active use, the center of gravity will become exactly in the position between the index and middle finger. Sometimes you can find comments about excessive thickness of the blade, but if you make the blade a millimeter thinner, the ideal balance of the knife will be broken, and to keep it, you will have to lengthen the blade to equalize the mass. The knife is currently available with ABS plastic sheath, and until about 2018, it came with a leather sheath. Both options are certainly good, but the plastic sheath is more practical. The blade is made of corrosion-resistant steel. The steel grade is not indicated on the blade, but on the official website you can find information that it is AUS 8, or similar steel with hardness 57 to 58 HRC. What is meant by similar steel is not specified. However, to be fair, it should be noted that the steel is very good. The heat treatment of the blade is excellent, as hard as possible, but not brittle. It keeps sharpening very well, but taking into account the thick information, the process of sharpening requires some effort and tools. The factory sharpening is done by hand on a grinder, with all the ensuing consequences. Traditional for such sharpening are small recurves at the heel and corner slumps at the blade tip. On the sides and perimeter of the cutting edge, there are also significant variations in sharpening angles, but it is possible for an additional fee to order optional sharpening on a sharpening system for a total angle of 30 degrees. If there was an option to order the knife without sharpening at all, that would be great. Many people criticize the Kizlyar production company for the thick reduction of their products, but according to my criteria, the Raccoon knife is well reduced. The reduction is 4.5 to 1 relative to the edge, i.e., the point of reduction is 4.5 times thinner than the edge. Taking into account the descents from the edge, this is a very good indicator. The only significant problem with knives with a thick blade reduction is the complexity of sharpening. Often on the internet you can find statements that this steel can be sharpened with any stone from the big road, but in my opinion, this does not apply much to Kizlyar knives because of the thick lead of the blade. At most, it is possible to sharpen the cutting edge with a river stone, but a full-fledged sharpening will require considerable effort, skill, and time. Initially, I planned to use the tool for working on dense materials, so I made a lenticular approach to the angle of convergence of 48 degrees. But I liked the ergonomics of the knife so much that I started to use it too often and decided to adapt it for everyday tasks. For this purpose, I made on it a two-stage Lithuanian undercut at 38 and 26 degrees. For aesthetes and lovers of thin undercuts, it is of course a horror, but I am indifferent to it. I care more about the working properties of the blade. If you like the ergonomics of this particular knife and at the same time want to adapt it for precise and easy cutting, you can make a two-stage Lithuanian undercut. Sharpen the blade to a general angle of 24 to 26 degrees and make a thin undercut of 30 to 32 degrees. If this variant is not suitable, it is better to consider other variants of knives with the thickness of the edge up to 2.5 millimeters. One of the positive factors is that this tool is constantly evolving, and for a decade and a half of production of this knife, it has undergone significant positive changes. In particular, the shape of the blade tip has changed. There is a small reverse escapement, which reduced the frontal area of the tip and improved the penetrating ability of the blade when stabbing the treated material. The sheath has changed to a more practical one made of ABS plastic. Despite the fact that I am quite complimentary about this knife, I must warn you against buying any knives with thick lead if your toolkit for sharpening the knife is limited to one such abrasive stone, or you do not have the opportunity to turn to a sharpener. Knives with a thick lead are quite versatile and when sharpened well have a great cut, but good sharpening is quite labor-intensive. If you are able to sharpen this knife to your needs, it will be a great tool for organizing in the wilderness and other everyday tasks. I often use this knife as a mini knife. You can easily cut logs for heating without fear of making a chip on the blade. My brother works as a hunting engineer, and just the other day we were discussing this tool with him. He has his own Raccoon and liked the versatility of this knife when cutting. The cutting edge at the heel can easily strip joints of a large animal and work on bones without risk of damaging the blade. And because of the large curvature of the point, this knife is very convenient to carry out skinning operations and to separate muscle tissue from bone. Summarizing the results, I would like to emphasize the advantages of this tool. It is the design of the knife, heat treatment of the blade, materials of the handle and the blade. The disadvantage can be attributed to the factory sharpening, but this is more of a nag. No one prevents it to resharpen under their own tasks. Just in case, I will specify that this is not an advertisement. I bought this knife for my own money and did not receive any remuneration for creating this video. That's it for me. Good luck to everyone.